Hi, Saturday, the 26th of April, and I'm sorry I didn't record a video yesterday. Sadly, I lost one of my precious cats on the road outside my house. So I was very much reminded of the fact that we have a Mars-Pluto opposition. Okay, I just wasn't up to it, I'm afraid. I was just crying all day. But anyway, I'm here now. And let's share and look at this chart. Okay, now, so let's talk about Pluto actually, as we're here. Um, People often ask what planet represents death in astrology, and traditionally astrologers have always been a bit cagey about this. When I was learning, actually, I was told it was Jupiter. Jupiter was always present at death. Um, that might be so. I haven't checked all of the death charts that I see. However, I am very much aware that it's actually Pluto. And in this nice of trying to sanitize, in this age of trying to sanitize everything and make it have a general um, air of positivity and don't want to hear any nasty things about death and the dying, etc. We have tried to cleanse this Pluto image. However, I am very aware that it is about death, because it's about the passage of the soul into the underworld, and that really only happens with the death of the body. So I'm going to say Pluto. Now, before everybody starts checking their charts and thinking that they're going to die because they have a Pluto transit coming up, it is not the case that everybody who has a Pluto transit dies, because if that happened, then there would be nobody listening to this and nobody even recording it. It's the other way around. If somebody passes through, then you can then go to the chart and you will usually find Pluto activity. But it's not the case that Pluto activity predicts death. What Pluto activity predicts is change. Something must change into what it must become. Now, that can be the horoscope of my dear Cleo cat, or it can be the horoscope of whatever was born and has a horoscope. And it is the case that with all of us, Pluto will always bring about change, and this change is also the change of dying, where the spirit instantly goes up to the great collective spirit in the sky. Let's call it the spirit lake, where it joins other spirit, the home of deity, in fact, fire. And the soul goes to the great soul lake, but not immediately in an instant death like Cleo's. The soul wasn't ready, and so it can hang around for a little while before it cuts the silvery thread and goes to the great soul lake. That process is very much Pluto's process, and the soul going into the underworld and making the journey across the mythical river Styx, but making the journey basically is part of the whole fabric of our life. That journey is as much part of life as the journey of birth and being in the overworld, the upper world, as it is for the time that our souls spend in the underworld. And I'll say our soul, there are memories in that soul of our life, but those lives collectively, when they get to the soul lake, increase the knowledge, the wisdom, the experience of the great soul lake, so that when another soul enters a body, it has all the experience of the previous souls. Nothing is wasted. Okay, sorry. Right, now going back to the share. Right, I have a number of things actually that we need to cover, so I better hurry up. So, The first and most obvious news is the burial of Pope Francis today. And in that case, everybody's mind is on death and the passage of souls and the instant release of spirit. Now, yes, we have the Mars-Pluto opposition to accompany this. But there is something else in this chart as well, and that is the Chiron Eris conjunction, which is coming up quickly now. So this is almost at 24. This is just past 25. It won't be too long before they're very, very close to each other within one orb. The moon is going to pass through that conjunction later today, and it's heading for a new moon in Taurus. Okay, let's just cover these things one at a time. So, Chiron is definitely a symbol for vulnerability and grief. And so, in the same way that the world had an outpouring of grief when I remember Princess Diana dying, then also the world has an outpouring of grief for a pope who was seen as very special and kind and loving. Okay, so the astrology is setting us up for that. It's in sync, if you like, with the collective emotional tide. But we're also in here the dark of the moon. The moon is approaching the sun, and as such, its own reflected light disappears. And it's this dark of the moon which is actually achieving and giving us, demonstrating a process, the process of acceptance of death, of cycles and new cycles, because although this moon is going into the dark of the moon symbolism for death, the promise is that it comes out again into rebirth. And this was so much the Egyptian mythology, so much in Egyptian belief and thought. This whole process was supported. The journey through the underworld that the sun makes every night. I could go on. I won't. Right. So we have that to symbolize these sad times. And also the Venus-Saturn conjunction. Saturn too brings losses. The losses of Saturn are about really the learning. It's all about the testing of things, more of a personal journey indicator. But nevertheless, Saturn conjunct Venus. So Venus is about the pleasure of acquisition, achieving, and the sheer pleasure of this life on Earth, the sheer pleasure of the material and the corporeal dimension. Saturn shows a restriction to that, a boundary, and it can sadden us that we have to be shown this boundary and the vulnerability of life. Okay, now, have I covered everything? I think so. Yes, I'll stop sharing. That's a bit good thing to do. So, yes, sorry about the delay on this one, and I wish you a peaceful day, one in which there is bound to be reflection, and it's also a day where we get to really think about the cycle of life, and we're on that down bit of the wheel before we go. So the up bit of the wheel will come again after we have gone to the bottom and come up again. And this is very much about the celebration of that cycle, acceptance of that cycle. If we didn't have this cycle, we wouldn't be able to feel the benefit of the up and the going over the top. We have to have the contrasts. It is actually absolutely imperative that we get these experiences for our soul's learning. And the soul is a very quiet part of our body because it's feminine, it's yin. The mind is masculine, fiery. The mind is masculine and the element is air and it is constantly chatty. The spirit is fire and fiery and also very sort of active, masculine active, mind and spirit, masculine active. The soul very rarely gets heard. And the soul isn't as obvious to us with its messages. It works in a way that can only come with an ancient feeling. It's a difficult one to explain. But when the chatter of the mind and the spirit quieten, and we go into a depressed state, not a clinical depression, but a depressed state, it is then that the soul is able to process, work with us, but it doesn't talk to us like the gut and the mind do. It's a process that is much more feeling in some way. So when we get these days, the soul is very much more active, and because it is feminine, it does feel regressive. It does feel, you can feel it pulling in. You want to go inwards. You don't want to party. It's not how it should be. The soul, feminine, yin, it's about processing. It's about receiving. It's about gestating. And so that is really a process that we should be willing to go through because of its restorative value and because it is all adding to a wisdom that we must and should acquire in our lifetimes. Okay, I will be talking to you in 2 days on Monday and for another video. And thank you very much for listening. And I do hope that that was okay and you kind of got the message. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.